A message came into my station where a mismatch in the check and the number of groups that I had led to an interesting question about punctuation in the amateur radio message. Let's talk about punctuation. Stick around. In the traditional radiogram form, we are sending messages in a way that will work for voice as well as for Morse code. The question becomes, how can we use punctuation in that context? As a general matter, that means we're going to encode the punctuation. We're going to take a look at an example. The reason why this message was interesting to me is because this traffic came into my station showing 15 groups, and yet the number of groups that I had in the text was actually 17. So the question becomes, how did that happen? Well, first of all, remember that when we are copying traffic, that is, we are recording everything that is coming our way, we are writing exactly what the other side is voicing. So in this particular case, we had repeater figures 147, decimal figures 210, or, and so on. So I recorded this, I copied it exactly as it was voiced. However, we do not actually use decimal when we are voicing a particular figure group that includes a decimal point in there. We actually will encode that, and we use the letter R. So the correct voicing for this would be repeater mixed group 147 Romeo 210, or, and in that way we have the frequency as a single group, and it is clear what we mean. While Morse code does have a decimal or a dot, da-da-di-da-di-da, we do not have that in the procedures that are used for NTS in relaying messages by CW. So rather than introduce one new character at a time, we simply continue to use long-standing procedure, which is to encode the decimal as the initial R, and if we voice it, it will be mixed group 147 Romeo 210, and if we are sending by Morse code, then we are going to be using the R character da-da-dit rather than da-da-da-da-da, the decimal. So in this particular case, we were able to work it all out because when I had my groups not match the check that was in the preamble of the message, I was able to ask the transmitting station whether the word after, whether the group after repeater is in fact the mixed group 147 Romeo 210. He confirmed that it is on his station in that form, but he voiced it to me as it was voiced to him. It's noteworthy that this group, if voiced, figures 147 decimal 210, would be a legitimate group, one group, if we were using the ACP 125 procedure that we see in military and government circuits. On NTS, however, we are using amateur procedure, and as it stands today, that procedure is to encode the decimal with the initial R, making a mixed group 147 Romeo 210. So in this case, we were able to work it out. It seems that it all makes sense, and we're not actually missing any groups along the way. So what are some other examples when we need to perform some kind of encoding? Slash is, in fact, something that we use in CW, in Morse code, and is part of the procedures for NTS. So there's actually no problem using the slash character, da-di-di-da-dit, and we're able to use it just as we normally would. However, that doesn't follow for other kinds of punctuation. We will have initial X-ray. We've talked about that in other videos. That's used to denote a period or to indicate where there is a break in thought. We don't use it as a period at the end of the last sentence. It's just where there's a break in thought. We just talked about the example of the letter R to denote a decimal in a number. There is also dot, where we are writing an email address, where we have Gmail. I spell Golf Mike Alpha India Lima dot. I spell Delta Oscar Tango. And this is interesting to note. We are using dot spelled out rather than the initial R or the Morse code for decimal when we are inside of an email address. Other punctuation that we might use would include something like dash or comma, exclamation. A question mark uses the word query. In all of those cases, we are writing out whatever that punctuation is, and we are doing so that when it is transmitted by voice, comma, we have the ability to place things in the right location. Initial X-ray. Isn't this a good idea? Query. And that way the receiving station is able to copy it exactly as it is at the sender station, and it is the delivering station's responsibility to take it out of the transmission format and into a presentation format when it goes back to a real person. Just a couple of tips that you need when you are originating traffic in the first place. You need to get it encoded properly. When you're relaying traffic, and then when you're delivering traffic, of course, you want to take it out of that transmission format and back into something that is intended for humans with proper punctuation and so on. I hope that you have found this useful and that it will help you in your journey to become an excellent traffic handler. Like the video, subscribe if you find the channel useful, and I look forward to seeing you again. This is Radio KD8TTE, out.